The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the SpotTrack.com podcast. I'm Kevin Sylvester, along with Paul Peck and the founder of SpotTrack.com, Mike Giannetti. We're brought to you by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. You know the deal. They're empowering professional athletes and entertainers. Get the most out of their deals, right? Give them the knowledge and everything to make informed decisions about their finances and their wealth. Learn more. Visit morganstanley.com/GSE. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, LLC, a member SIPC. Boy, let's talk about the horse race first, right?
Some of our listeners may be in need of financial assistance.
Let's
after
wait
betting
22
Country House.
minutes to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, fascinating. Did you talk to Mike? I mean, Paul's good friend is Mike Tirico,
I
his best
haven't,
friend.
And just because I know he's busy, and I do want to talk to him, and we'll relay that to everybody when I do. And I can't imagine what the challenge of being a broadcaster in something like that was. That at first you don't know what's going on, and then you start to get an idea of what could be going on, but it's unprecedented, and it never happened. And I guarantee you that as much as at a network level they plan for so many different parameters and alternate courses of action, more than likely they never had a discussion about what do we do if there's an objection and a disqualification.
Right. The only thing I can relate it to, and you were probably covering it also, was the 99 Stanley Cup Finals, the no goal, the skate in the crease.
Yeah, but if you remember,
they let him out.
Nobody knew it for like 15 minutes after it ended because
we couldn't get in anywhere. Remember, we could not get in the press room
and
or
they
the locker
didn't
room.
show a replay of it because
They didn't have the technology.
They didn't
back
show
then.
the replay for like 15 minutes. And first, when you saw the replay, you're like, oh my God, his foot's in the crease. But it was 15 minutes after the game had ended already.
I remember just standing out waiting to get in. Everybody's like, what's going on? And you're hearing rumors, and you could hear the screaming from the coaches' offices, which are just inside of a door in the hallway, and then banging on the door. You could just hear it. And you're like, what is going on?
Then they stormed back out onto the ice, right? They stormed back to the bench.
Well, and then I forget who they threw out there at the NHL, but it was just like this guy was just a piñata.
Head of a
head of officials.
something or other.
Yeah, it was just not. But anyways, to the Kentucky Derby, what a precedent-setting decision. But I mean,
but it is and it isn't, and that's where Mike I think wants to chime. It is and it isn't.
It's happened, but not in the Kentucky Derby.
It's unprecedented for all of us who watch one horse race or 3 horse races a year. I guess the point you're about to make here is this happens regularly in the sport.
I've listened to a few gaming commissioners be interviewed in the past few days because this is just fascinating, right? Because I actually do follow horse racing a decent amount, and this is common. If you show up to a racetrack for 9-10 races, you're going to see this happen. It's just nobody's had the guns to do it the first week of May on a Saturday. No one's had the guns to do this, right?
We've all seen photo finishes. That's one thing. We're all familiar with that.
We have, but those photo finishes have gotten clearer and clearer, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
And that's really where we are. There's no escaping this anymore. Like the video, the stills, everything is crystal clear, perfect, and it's being posted to Twitter in 4 seconds, and you can't get around this. Could you imagine waking up Sunday morning if you were responsible for this call and you made it the other way? Can you imagine?
Or you didn't make it at all.
That's what I mean.
Right.
If they didn't make the call, right? If they just sort of ignored this, sort of like the NFL does with a lot of things, right? If they just sort of hope it goes away.
I give them credit. I give the stewards credit because this could have easily happened. Most people wouldn't have known it happened.
Okay.
The horse people would have said that's a blatant
Sunday morning.
clear.
They would have killed people for that.
But the majority of the public that's outraged now would have had no idea.
Let me jump in there because I actually thought about this almost as I was understanding what was going on. In hockey, how it's unbelievable this rule still exists, but it's only a major penalty if there's blood. I actually started thinking about this.
Well, because they called the one in the Sharks game with Pavelski. He wasn't.
But this
bleeding.
Happens, right?
But
guys try to make themselves bleed because they know they're going to get an extra 2 minutes on this penalty.
Yeah,
right?
and high sticking. If they get caught with a high stick and they're bleeding, they give them an extra 2.
What I'm saying
which is stupid.
Nothing really matters, and this happens sort of in soccer and a lot of these other sports. Unless somebody's kind of laying on the ground really injured, it might not be a foul, right? I mean, this is sort of the objectiveness that we're dealing with. I thought about this with the horses. Like, is this what it would have taken up until now? Would they have had to crash?
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
That's what no one's talked about it. Generally, what you're talking about, Mike, is you get penalized on the aftermath or the injury, right? And in this case, thankfully, there wasn't one. But when you start to dive in and listen to people, it could very well easily have been the ugliest Kentucky Derby we have ever seen.
It was
if
close.
those two jockeys don't pull up when they're cut off, there's mayhem. There's 10 horses that might not survive the Kentucky Derby, and then the level of outrage that some people are experiencing now would have been 1,000 times worse. So in that regard, I give the stewards a lot of credit for saying that affected a lot of things, and it's our job to recognize when it does and penalize it when it does, regardless of what race this is.
I want the 30 for 30 on those 22 minutes inside those rooms.
Well, they had the camera shot.
I want to know who they interviewed. I want to know there had to be debate. There had to be somebody saying we can't do this, right? Because those people have to still exist.
Sure.
There had to be a debate.
But if it's clear and it's the standard of the sport,
yes,
right? Now, this has happened in sports, and I want to say it was the Western Conference Final several years ago when the Blackhawks and the former director of officiating, and damn it, I forget his name, he called a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
He called a penalty late, and it wasn't a penalty. Like, they were like, oh, that was a terrible call, and he might have made a makeup call to even things out, and they scored in a power play to force overtime or to win the game. It was a penalty in overtime. People listening like, yes, I remember that thing. And it was such a controversy. Like, how could he do this? It wasn't something they could overturn.
Right.
So, like, he made a gutsy call. It was an incorrect call, but a gutsy call. Or they don't make calls. I mean, listen, the Saints, they won Twitter, right?
Oh, yeah.
The Saints won Twitter with that emoji, like, You know, like, if they had done this in other sports, then the Saints might have been in the Super Bowl, right?
Sure.
If they'd done this. But this makes sense. They want to prevent this thing, but let's talk about the real.
Well, can I ask you a technical question first? Because I'm not enough of an expert to understand it. This was prompted by the claims of the two jockeys.
Correct.
Right?
A protest.
Would it have been reviewed and potentially the outcome had the jockeys not? Like, do the stewards have the ability to look and say that's a blatant error and mistake? Or was it strictly prompted by the two jockeys that get on the phone and call in?
I think it was prompted by that because I think it's like we talked about the skate in the crease. You know, there's such a major event, a championship. The major championship is won in the sport. The euphoria and everything. Wow, oh my God, everybody's checking their winnings.
That's a great question because that is the integrity part of this, right? Would they have made the call on their own? That's an incredible question.
I mean, isn't that what the goal
anyone out there
judge,
is listening, if you know anything about this, you got to let us know. We need this 30 for 30. This is a 30 for 30 worthy incident.
It'll be a 30 for 30.
I mean,
but they should only do it in 22 minutes. It should be 22.
It will. But it will, though, right?
Right, because
with commercials, 22 minutes.
Well, yeah, TV show is 22 minutes.
I love it.
Maybe 22:30.
It's writing itself right now.
Unless you're me producing a golf show for a local affiliate and you gave him 27.
Yeah, this is a question that I'll ask my guy Tirico because knowing Mike, he'll know the answers to all of these.
I reached out to Mike. I really wanted to get him on here for 5 minutes just because what was in his head for those 20? What is he asking his guys for 22 minutes? Like, what information is he like? How unprecedented? You know what I mean? The questions that because you know him, he's sharp as a tack.
Yep.
He's probably asking all the right questions, getting all this information. I want to pick his brain.
It took them a long time to get a replay that most of us uninformed people could understand.
Right.
You know, you had to see the head-on replay. Any other replay beyond the head-on one didn't really show you. Because I just remember looking at it, going, "What are they talking about? Like, what horse? Show me what horse fouled what." And then finally, they kind of got themselves going with the video and spotlighting and the head-on shot. Clearly shows him moving, quote unquote, 3 lanes over, right?
Yes.
That's what this was all about.
Well, let's talk about the money because there are people out there outraged because they thought they won a trifecta, superfecta, or they had a lot of money in that horse. And then there are people who are just like, oh my God, right? Because
there's a third group, by the way.
Yeah.
There's people who had Country House.
Right.
And threw the ticket away and can't find it.
Oh,
there's those people too, and those tweets are phenomenal. Go ahead,
because he's the second biggest winning long shot, right?
Second,
in history. 65 to 1 odds. 65 to 1 odds. The payout, if you just bet a $2 exacta, right? The 1-2, $3,000. $3,000.
Unbelievable.
Trifecta, a $2 trifecta, which if you're smart, you bet the 50 cents and you box it. But anyway, $2 trifecta cash for over 11,000, Paul, nearly 11,500.
It's incredible.
A superfecta, I think, paid $50,000.
It's unbelievable.
That is just crazy money. Crazy money on the bets, you know? And people bet it, right? And they bet the combinations.
They did.
Through you know.
But not many people bet Country House.
No.
I mean, they just
Well,
didn't.
why would you? If there were so many horses in the field and he's 65 to 1 odds.
Yeah.
You know, most people betting this are casual bettors, right? They bet the Kentucky Derby.
Were the odds makers incredibly in error here and underestimating this horse? Because either way, he finishes in the top 3.
Correct.
He was clear on the outside. I mean, he had a great run coming. War of Will was the horse that was getting nicked. That was the one horse on the inside rail, which I thought had a real chance before that.
Yes.
So I mean, it would have broken down. I think Maximum Security, War of Will, Country House, which would have still paid well.
Still paid well. Yep.
But I mean, in just doing some research here, if Maximum Security had won this race, that's 7 straight favorites. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
Well,
7 straight that would have been.
And he was the favorite only because the other
scratch.
favorite, right? Yeah.
Omaha Beach.
Omaha
stretch.
Beach.
Omaha
Yeah.
Beach.
Right.
But
was
$9
stretched.
million bet on Maximum Security before the race. That's a lot of money.
That is a
lost.
lot of money.
That's a lot of people who had a really bad 22 minutes. That's what that is.
My brother-in-law bet $5 on that horse.
Yeah.
I was at a wedding, and I have an app that you can bet, and then, so everybody's giving me cash for to bet, picking horses. It was just a fun thing in between ceremony, whatever. And he's the only one who bet on the favorite. Everybody's going big,
Yeah.
right? Not big enough on Country House though, and they were doing trifectas and all that stuff. And he's the only one. I just want to bet the favorite. I'm like, you're going to win $12. Like, really? That's just what I want to do. I'm like, this is the same one who says tax doesn't matter. Anyhow, and it was great. I mean, hey, you won. Oh, wait a second. You did not win. He's like, what?
Yeah.
Pissed off the rest of the night. It was great. What is your favorite horse bet, by the way?
I don't know.
You don't know?
You have one?
I like doing, well, I'll do 2 bets.
I do an exact and a trifecta every year.
Yes.
And I always pick the 8 to win. That's just my number. But I don't really have like anything creative. Do you have a creative bet?
No, I don't have a creative. Well, the only creative bet I did a Baffert box.
Nice.
With his horses?
With his horses. I did a Baffert trifecta box, and of course that lost. But, I'll do something with that. With trainers, I'll pick 3 trainers who've won the most derbies. I'll try to box them. Just try to do different things. Jockeys, I'll pick that.
The boxing is the way to go on these
Oh,
things,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yes, the boxing is the way to go here.
It covers you, right?
My favorite bet's the exacta box. You can pick multiple horses to fit in there, but you're investing a little bit in doing so, and you've got to get some long shots in there. So if it hits, either get your money back if you get some favorites, or you hit big.
Yeah.
So I like the exacta box, trifecta box.
Let me throw one.
Superfectas are a waste of money.
That's crazy, right? You can't pick 4.
4 to get 4, like.
Let me end this segment on this. I just want your thoughts. Is it fair that the infraction happened on the inside rails and the outside horse wins the race? If the infraction changes the winner of a horse race, should it just be a null and void race?
That's a great question. I think that was part of the confusion at first. You're like, well, wait a minute, if that horse fouled, why did the one on the end? And I get it. There's cause and effect that's involved here because the foul prevents the middle horse from doing what he needs to do, and then all the other things that happen beyond that. It's a great question, and that was one of the things that popped into my head. I'm like, but wait a minute, how did that horse win when the foul occurred on the other?
Because he was smart, right? Because he was taking the clear path, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, he wasn't getting in the mess, but it just
shouldn't
seems,
the fouled horses have benefited more?
Yeah,
That's the argument.
I think
right?
War of Will had a real chance if he kept clean. Yeah, I don't know. I understand it,
but he finished second, so he finished second, so he wins now.
Yeah, but he finished second. He got $600,000. The owners.
Yeah, the
did.
winner $1.86.
$1.86 million.
That's what Maximum Security gave up.
These are PGA Tour majors money here.
Crazy.
1.86.
Not to mention the sponsorships and the barn
and the opportunity to win the Triple Crown and all that stuff. Now,
how about that? By the way, he's not going to run the Preakness.
I get it. Why not? Why?
What?
Why?
Are you kidding? To throw it back in everybody's face.
Well, but if he has no chance to win the Triple Crown, essentially that's what these guys are all in it for. That's why there's 25 horses in the Derby.
The stress on the horse.
Yeah.
They say it is very stressful because of how close they are on the calendar together.
Yeah, of course.
So,
it's a medical nightmare. I get
right.
it. But
again, it's all about the Triple Crown. Not necessarily.
Listen, the Kentucky Derby is the most prestigious. It's like NASCAR. The Daytona 500, the first one's the most prestigious that you can win.
Right.
The Kentucky Derby is the most prestigious. But if you feel like you've got a shot at the Triple
But he had the best horse. That's the best horse. It was clearly the best horse.
Correct.
And you pissed away $2 million. So go win more in the Preakness, right?
But he could probably win more running that horse on the normal, beyond the Triple Crown level races.
Is the horse messed up? Is there a chance of that? Because do you know what the jockey said?
Is the horse pissed off? Is that what you're asking?
No. Do you know what the jockey actually said, the reason this happened? The jockey claims he came around turn 4, that grandstand noise hit him in the face and just threw him off course.
Well, isn't that a relatively common? That's the whole blinders
Does that mean he's
thing,
not a great?
right?
Does that mean he's not a great horse? Are they sidling this horse now because of that incident? I mean, can he not handle that kind
What's
of?
What's the horse said on Twitter?
I don't know. Let's move on.
Could be.
So many questions.
I don't know enough.
We need the movie, people.
Obviously, listen. If there's probably concerns, they'd run them.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to a different kind of race, and that is the free agency race. It's still going on in the NFL. However,
it's a big day.
It's an interesting day in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Mike, explain what
it's
today
is. It's a nerdy
is.
day. For those of you who really follow free agency hard, one of the bigger, and we talked about it on this podcast, just really, with the teams who are kind of abusing this, the compensatory draft pick system, the formula that really none of us sort of have fully figured out, but we can sort of kind of get it. If one of your free agents gets signed elsewhere for a significant amount of money, you end up getting a draft pick back of 3rd, 4th, or 5th round in the next draft, right? It's kind of like a yin and a yang kind of thing. So, the Steelers let Le'Veon Bell walk. He got paid handsomely in New York. They're going to get a 3rd round pick next year for that. That's just an easy example. Today is the deadline.
Do you like that, by the way?
We had a show about this where I did like it, with the institution of the hard cap, and it was sort of a nice way for teams to sort of benefit from losing somebody. But with all this cap space and teams getting smarter and smarter with these trades and acquiring assets, I mean, you've got the Seahawks didn't even have to try, and they turned 4 picks into 10 this year. I mean, if you can do that, why are we giving away picks? You know what I mean? Why is there a need for comp picks if teams can do that without even trying? The Patriots done this for a decade.
Right.
The Patriots add picks every year.
It was intended to reward teams that couldn't pay players that left. Now what it's become is a tool for teams to not pay players.
That's right.
Because they
very
know
well
they're going to get picks
Very well
back.
said. Everybody has the cap money. It's the choice now. It's the choice. So I disagree. I think it's a dying art, but it's here. Today is the deadline. If you can now, after today, sign a free agent, and they won't qualify for the compensatory formula. So players like Ndamukong Suh, Ziggy Ansah, Morris Claiborne, there's a couple of names still out there. Not really offensively. I mean, Jay Ajayi and Michael Crabtree are sort of your breadwinners on the offensive side. It's gotten real thin there. But no question, a player like Suh, teams have been waiting. Teams don't want to sign this guy because they don't want to forfeit the draft pick next year.
Yeah, so that's important as mentioned. The draft pick comes from the team that signs him.
Yeah, it's very similar to what's happening in baseball with the qualifying offer draft pick compensation to Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrell. Once I believe it's June 15th, baseball draft happens. That's the deadline for those.
Wait, Kevin. I think what you said wasn't correct. You don't forfeit a draft pick.
No.
All right. Well, so
what happens is that it messes your formula.
Right.
You don't give up a
can't-
4th round pick. The 4th round pick that goes to Baltimore because they didn't sign
The
the
league creates.
The league creates.
Okay, so then why are teams?
Because for a team like Baltimore that's always been the king at this, they may be in line for 3rd and 4th picks, but if they sign Ndamukong Suh, they
Subtracts
may
from that.
lose the 4th round pick.
It's a subtraction.
They lose a compensatory pick.
It's a loss versus gain.
Yes.
I got you.
formula.
Yeah.
So if
All
you
right.
sign free agents that qualify, it subtracts from your ability to gain comp picks for
So if I
players
lose,
you've
if I'm the
lost.
Steelers, I lose Le'Veon Bell, I get a 3rd round pick.
Right.
But if I sign Ndamukong Suh, I lose that 3rd round pick.
You might.
Most likely,
You might.
if he
yes.
signs for the right amount
Gotcha.
of money. Most
Okay,
likely.
makes sense.
Yep. So that's a good way to understand that. But yeah, today's the deadline. So tomorrow these guys are essentially strapped free, so they can go and get whatever they need money wise. years-wise. It's not going
Are
to
these a whole
qualify
bunch
to
of
next
one-year
year.
contracts?
I would
These guys
think
are gonna all
so.
sign?
I would think so. I mean, it sort of amazes me Ziggy Ansah hasn't signed yet. He's got to be not healthy.
He was not healthy.
He's
He
had
is
a
not
couple of
healthy,
injuries.
or there's questions as to how healthy he is.
Yeah. I imagine Sue
Yeah, I
already
mean,
has,
that's a relatively young pass rusher.
Yeah.
Those guys don't usually
They don't
become
wait around.
available. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine Sue probably has 2-3 teams lined up that he's been waiting for this threshold to pass. It's probably going to be a playoff team, and we're all going to hate it, But we'll see. And Mo Wilkerson, another player, kind of similar to Sue. We'll see. I think tomorrow's going to be a big day for sort of another wave of free agency just based on this whole formula.
All right. Very interesting that these, because you wondered why these players, particularly Sue, I figured someone would snatch him up earlier. And, Eric Berry's interesting, by the way.
It is.
He's an interesting player,
Big time leader, big time
Up there,
sort
though?
of locker room guy. Up there
a little
history
bit.
of injuries.
Yeah.
lately.
Tons of history. But,
Yeah.
But,
All right.
But yeah, a captain of the defense type player who shouldn't command a lot of money because he's made a ton of money from Kansas City not to play.
That is true. All right, let's talk about the Rams and Ndamukong Suh's former team.
Yeah.
They're rebuilding, and Todd Gurley has that big contract. But you're very concerned.
It's been real delicately sort of done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's been delicately talked about.
If you
How hurt
if
is
you
he?
Sort of, right, since the Super Bowl. But what I'm saying is they've sort of done things over the past 2 months, 3 months, including the draft, that just sort of add up to, we don't know what the heck's going on with Todd Gurley, and I'm not sure they do either. And even if they know, they're not comfortable because
They're covering their bases in case he's never the same player that he was.
I mean, there was no reason really for them to match the tender to Malcolm Brown that the Lions put out there, the offer sheet. He's back in the fold. They've got 5 running backs now in the fold, 4 of which can contribute. The significant draft pick. They traded up in round 3, which is becoming that target round for starting running backs. Let's just be honest. That's where most teams are finding their next running back, and the Rams did that this year. They traded up for Darrell Henderson out of Memphis, number 70 overall. That's a not for nothing pick on a team that is sort of locked in and ready to go. Right? I mean, they're not rebuilding, but they appear to be rebuilding this running back position, and it's something to watch because I just think there is at least major concern for Todd Gurley's immediate future. But holy cow, financially, he is a nightmare for them. He's a nightmare.
Financially, yes.
Yeah.
Is there a thought that maybe they're keeping Malcolm Brown? They draft Darrell Henderson to preserve Gurley, meaning so they could have him in the big moments.
Cut his touches in half, maybe.
The Gronk theory, right? Like, hey, you know what? You're going to sit this game, whatever. We're going to preserve you. So
I think you're right.
At the big moments, you're going to play because he didn't play in the big moments last year.
That has to be it. That's like the Warriors, right?
Yes.
They're going to take a few weeks off. I mean, the Patriots, too. The Patriots did this. They sort of mail it in with Brady's offensive scheme for the first 6 to 7 weeks now, based on how it's looked. I of course, that's what they're going to do if he can go at all. Does anybody know if he can go at all?
Nobody knows exactly how much he's hurt.
Right? I mean,
He could miss the. Listen,
they could sit him.
they could sit him.
He's only
right?
worth $5 million cash to them this year. They could sit him. He's guaranteed through 2020, fully guaranteed, a bonus and 2 salaries through the next 2 years. And the dead cap is crazy. I mean, he's going nowhere. He might be going to the reserve pup list.
Yeah. Is this just another example of what we've talked an awful lot about, which is giving big money to running backs is the dumbest thing you can
and
do.
more and more.
No matter how good they are.
It looks like Zeke's not getting that money.
I mean, it just, and again, they got the best out of Todd Gurley. He got them to new heights. He got them to a Super Bowl. He was an MVP, wasn't he?
Well, did he get him?
Yeah.
Did he get him to the Super Bowl?
Well, he got them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he had a heck of a year.
Yes, but it's just
I know,
another.
but the playoff games, he didn't carry the
No,
load.
what I'm saying, his season got them in position to be in the Super Bowl.
C.J. Anderson.
I don't know why you would give big money to a running back anymore. It doesn't make any sense because even if he's the best guy in the league, when he's the best guy in the league, it's only getting worse from there beyond. And if you can replace him and get roughly 80% of the production of the best guy in the league for a mid-round draft pick, it makes no sense to ever give guys money.
Well, I'm gonna play advocate here
Right.
on that for a moment. What makes sense is how long you give them money for. Mm-hmm. And the way the system's so, for example, let's look at and why can't I think of the guy, the Giants running back?
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley, thank you. I wanted to say Charles Barkley for some reason.
A little more of a fullback.
I was just watching a video of his golf swing again, and it seems to be in shambles once again. Come on, Chaz. But anyway, Saquon Barkley's they drafted him. He's an unbelievable player.
Yeah.
Like Elliott has been an unbelievable player, but how long can they sustain it when you keep feeding these guys the football as much as you can because they're great players?
4 years of their contract, right, Mike?
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the point, right? So we look at Barkley's money because he was drafted second overall and say, wow, that's not great for running backs. But you know what? The next contract, maybe he doesn't get it because
Ezekiel
he's worn
Elliott's
out.
everything right now. He's everything right now because he's the next one of those top. What was he? Top five? Was he he third, fourth? I think he was fourth.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
So top five running backs. Those days are probably gone, right? I don't think Fournette's getting another contract in Jacksonville. It's going to be Zeke, then it's going to be Barkley, and one hand might feed the other, right? I mean, if this Gurley thing really does sort of fall down like we sort of think it might, and Zeke doesn't get paid. Let's say Zeke gets franchise tagged, which I think is looking more and more likely.
I think this Gurley thing is a prime reason for those guys to be very worried.
To me, the only saving grace for this position right now is Le'Veon Bell. If Le'Veon Bell is a monster in New York this year, it's going to shut everybody up, right? It has to.
Well,
because he took his tag, then he moaned about the tag. He stepped aside. He forfeited it, came back fresh. And if he's the top running back in the league again, then we've got to rethink how this works. And one way I want to rethink about it is, why can't we make all of this work together, right? We've talked about cap space. Teams still have it. Right now, teams still have it, even with the draft picks to be signed. Why can't you sign Todd Gurley to 3 for $40 like they did and draft a third-round pick and bring in 2 veterans? Why can't all of this coexist? Why does Todd Gurley have to have 30 touches a game, even though he's worth $40 million? Who cares, right? Who cares anymore?
Do you know why?
Just make it all safer.
You make fantastic points. What's going to be talked about, like we do this once a week, right? They're going to talk about, listen, ESPN has afternoons of football shows. NFL Network has their own network to talk about all this stuff. And then in LA, for those who care, they're just going to talk about it on Sports Talk all the time.
What's going to be talked about is the fantasy shows.
Sure.
We can't start anybody because if Todd Gurley's only getting 9 touches, who do we start?
Right.
That's the conversation. That's what's going to drive the media.
There's still a glory about the running back position based on what a lot of us have grown up watching football, but it's not a reality
They don't
anymore.
have to be horses anymore.
No.
They don't have to be.
You know what? That's why when you join Dynasty Owner, you should be...
Who the heck do you draft?
Who do you draft?
Josh Jacobs, by the way.
But you have to build a deep draft here with...
Gruden's going to use his running backs, right?
He should. Right. Let me tell you more about Dynasty Owner here real quick. It's the first Dynasty Salary Cap Fantasy Sports game where you week to week, but actually you have contracts and salaries. You have the roster power of both coach and general manager. You don't just trade for players, but with Dynasty Owner, you can acquire draft picks or Dynasty dollars, which is the virtual currency used to play the game. You rack up the dollars each week, whether you win or lose your matchup, and use them to build a dynasty long-term, year-to-year, so you can make those decisions about your running back. And if you have to sit Gurley, don't worry, Paul. You get a percentage of his bench points because a true dynasty is built with a deep bench. It allows you to even go over the salary cap and go all in if you want, but there is a luxury tax. Fine, just like the real world. First game to combine week-to-week fantasy sports along with ownership GM strategy. Own your team. Go to dynastyowner.com. Sign up for the 2019 beta draft. Tampa Bay Rays.
Wow.
What's the transition
Amazing.
here? A little baseball in here. Yeah, what is going on? This team, are they for real?
They're the real deal. They really are. They're doing everything. They're starting relievers still. Their starters that come in or actually start have been phenomenal. Lights out. They're maybe 1-2 Cy Young guys right now. The bats are there. They're hitting home runs. They're bunting. They're stealing. They're doing all the old school stuff, all the new school stuff. 22 wins, leads the majors. They're way ahead of Boston and New York. You have to just buy in at this point. You have to.
By the way, the so Ryan Stanek, right? Yeah. The reliever started 8 of 34
designated
games.
starter.
Right, which is just fascinating to me. He is the James of Jeopardy, but in baseball. Right? Do it differently.
8 starts, 16 innings pitched.
That's unbelievable.
It's awesome.
Phenomenal.
But you think about, you get out there, I mean, I get the concept, and I see how it go if they could continue this thing, but it actually makes sense, doesn't it?
It makes a ton of sense.
Tell everybody the payroll numbers, Mike, because they're staggering.
They're bonkers. I mean, you probably assume it with Tampa Bay just because they never pay. They're really not paying. I mean, their entire payroll right now is $61 million. Entire. That's money lost to dead guys.
That's the Yankees outfield.
Guys lost. Oh, it's less. It's less. It's nuts. It's the lowest by over $10 million. It's $165 million less than the Boston Red Sox.
Oh my God.
That's where we are right now. That's the range of payrolls in baseball right now, and the lowest is on top right now. That's just crazy. Their pitching staff, those 5 starters, the actual starters, the guys who come in the second,
sure,
third
right,
inning,
yeah.
$18 million for all 5 guys, and $15 million of that is one player.
Wow, that's great.
4 of their starters cost them $3 million this year. It's just nuts. I could have given you 15 numbers with the Rays because they're all bonkers. There's only one player worth more than $10 million. That's Charlie Morton at 15. Everybody else is $8 million or less. Everything's just crazy value. They're starting 8 players. They're regular starting 8 position players are worth $26 million. There's 12 players in the league that make more than that this year alone. I mean, everywhere you look on this team is value. It's just they're bonkers, and they're real. They're really going to keep winning. There's no question.
All right, so the easy question is,
I love it.
How have they done this? That's the very simplistic question. How have they done this?
They have maximized a roster full of players who understand that it's not all about an elevated swing. It's not all about getting rid of certain things. They're not gimmicky. They are shifting. They are starting relievers. You can call those gimmicks if you want to, but if you sit down for 5 minutes, all of that sort of has logical sense too, right? Like, why are they starting the reliever? Because they want the first 6 guys in the batting order. He's getting 2 innings. They want the first 6 guys in the batting order to see 2 different pitchers, their first 2 at bats, so they can't get locked in to somebody for 6 innings. That's just good sense,
right?
It's like in Little League. You get up there and you imagine you have a pitching machine for the first 2 innings and then a pitcher for the next 2. That's what it is. It's you want to change the eye level, right?
Well, yeah, and you've got a guy who's not going out there to establish anything to start. He's just going out there to blow you away.
He's going to hammer.
Right.
He's bringing the hammer, and maybe he's got a changeup or a curveball that can throw you off, and then the starter comes in, and he's more meticulous and tedious, and you've got to figure him out. It's about keeping players on their toes, and they've done it all year long. And you can get used to Ryan Stanek, but they've got 2 other guys they can start if they need to.
Sure.
And they're going to keep doing that, keep mixing it up. And that's just one of the ways that they're keeping people off the game. But they hit the ball. They hit singles and doubles. They've got speed. They steal bases. They bunt when they need to. They're doing all the little things that Joe Madden sort of brought to that franchise, right? At the crazy Joe Madden.
Right.
And, oh, by the way, those Chicago Cubs have won 8 in a row, and they're maybe the hottest team in baseball, not named Tampa Bay. It's not a mistake that these 2 franchises are sort of leading the way right now.
Can I tell you a quick Joe Madden story?
Go.
Please. He's amazing.
He is amazing.
I don't know Joe Madden, never met Joe Madden.
Bucket list.
When I worked for the Sabres, we would always have the same bus driver, Jack, in Boston, and he would also drive the baseball teams. And he would say, Joe Madden. I'd ask him, like, all right, so who's the best baseball manager he drives? Like, Joe Madden, easily.
Yeah.
He's the best. This is when he was at Tampa.
And the craziest.
Yeah, and he goes, but one of the cool things about him, he brings a bike with him. I gotta make room. I gotta get his bike on the bus. He got a foldable bike that he brings, and he just rides all over. Brings his bike every time. I just thought that was cool.
Nuts.
Like,
yeah, doesn't he? Isn't he the man? He has a a mobile home, like an RV, right?
That he's got like a Scooby-Doo bus, I think. Something like that.
Travels.
Right?
Like he has like an RV that he brings to spring training or whatever, too. Right. Yeah. All right. So when
it comes with a name, Madden.
That's right. When you get a team like this doing what the Rays are doing, inevitably we want to say, how are other teams going to start copying this, or are you already seeing signs of teams saying, if that's working down there in Tampa, it's going to work for me?
Yeah, it's coming. I don't think we've seen it regularly from anybody else. A lot of teams have figured out that you can. First of all, I think the art of having 7 guys in your lineup that just go up there hitting home runs is dying. Finally, I think it's not going to go away. Obviously, home runs are like 3-pointers, right? They're still the best way to score. But there's got to be a give and a take to that, and that's what Tampa Bay has done very well. Look, Tampa Bay still scores 12, 13 runs. It's just, maybe 2 or 3 of those come off the home run. Teams will adapt to this. And it's about lineup shifting too. It's about maybe having some power in the bottom of your batting order. That these adjustments are all the strategies that managers have sort of been toying with over the years, but have been afraid to do because it's against the norm. And really, no other sport has been afraid to go against the norm more than baseball. It's just the tradition is so rich. Tampa Bay's shaking it up. Joe Maddon's shaking it up in Chicago. He's been doing that for a decade now between the two franchises. St. Louis and Houston have picked it up. There's other teams sort of getting involved. But, Boston and New York, they're not. And it's going to be really interesting to see if their traditional high-paid, staffs are going to be able to keep up with this sort of, the jumble of the Tampa Bay Rays.
Well, isn't part of it, because the Rays aren't paying, they need to do something different, right? They got to figure out a different way to beat. How am I going to beat the teams that are outspending me?
Yeah.
And I just look at it. They're trying to do. They had to figure out. It's much like the A's, right? With Billy B. They had to figure out something different.
Still with Billy B.
Right.
He's still doing it because he is winning. He has won the past 3 years. He's winning again this year to some degree. And he did pay an actual player this year. Like he actually paid somebody money this year. So yes, it's about knowing when to pick your spots, right? That's the small market situation we're in. Cleveland, right? All these teams that sort of have evolved. Houston, of course. It's knowing when to be in your window, which we've talked about a bunch. Tampa Bay was in their window last year, and we sort of missed it, right? We sort of missed that they won 90 wins or won 90 games last year. And they made a couple of great moves this year, some acquisitions. I think there's probably a pitching move coming for them in July with some of these expiring contracts out there. Maybe a Madison Bumgarner out of San Francisco, something like that. Something Verlander-ish, right, that Houston did that sort of pushed them through the finish line. But, yeah, you're right. They have to think small. They have to think different. And that's why these small market, mid-market teams, Houston, Kansas City, have had success over the past 5 years.
Are they drawing over 10,000 people?
Nope, they had 8,000 yesterday for a gem from Blake
too bad.
Snell.
That's too
8,000.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to shift our gears to. But we mentioned the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I want to talk some Celtics.
Yeah, we're going to go Boston to finish this thing out, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I really want to talk. Can we talk basketball first?
No, that's last.
I know it's last, but
we have an agenda here, Kevin.
I know we have an agenda, but there's so much basketball.
Let's do it.
I want to make sure that we get the basketball in. So hold on, Celtics fans. All right, let's talk Patriots. Back to football here for a second because we'll stay in Boston with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Okay. He's not in Boston anymore, but boy, his value to the Patriots. Like,
unbelievable.
Right? This has been over a year and a half ago. They traded him to the 49ers, and the return, it's like, why are the Patriots winning all the time? Because they do stuff like this.
This is one of the coolest things we do at Spot Trek, and I got to give my stat guy, developer guy, Scott Allen, all the credit for this. We map these trades from start to finish, right? So if a trade hits, and for instance, with Garoppolo, it was 1-to-1, right? San Francisco got a quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. The Patriots got a number 2 pick in 2018. That was it. It was nice and easy, except for it's not, right? Because that number 2 pick then spirals down. If it's traded and then those picks are traded, and you get this big tree, right? And we follow that tree inside of our database, and we're able to kind of pull that data out. So I was able to go in there and pull this thing out and sort of see this web that existed, and I could not believe what I found.
So
I could not believe it.
Had the Patriots just picked a player,
done. Would have been done.
Right?
Yeah.
And player plays retired, it's done, right? It's
would have been one for one.
Which I'll argue might not be the worst thing. That sometimes the Patriots outsmart themselves with all of this, too.
I don't know. All right, everybody, wait. Here you go. Uninterrupted, Mike's going to weave this web, and it's incredible. Here we go.
Yeah, and so instead of 1 second-round pick, they continued to trade the picks that they were acquiring for that 1 pick, and they ended up with now 7 players, 4 of which I think are going to start this year. Truly, I think 4 of which are going to start. They've got a potential left tackle. They've got 2 cornerbacks on this list, an inside linebacker who I think is going to compete with Hightower eventually when they need to make him walk next year. That Jarrett Stidham, the quarterback they drafted, I don't know what kind of lifespan he's got, but maybe he turns into a backup they can trade like they do with all their backups.
He'll be with the team. They drafted him.
Yeah, he's going to stay.
So,
he's going to be a practice squatter at best. And then an edge rusher. So think about all the positions I just mentioned. Oh, and a running back. Think about all these positions I just mentioned. All these positions are positions they lost this year, right? They lost Trey Flowers. They lost Trent Brown. They lost. They're going to lose the McCourties after this year. They're going to get rid of Hightower after this year. They're one step ahead of themselves all the time. They know what they're losing. There's always a give and a take with this team. They turned a backup quarterback into 7 players, and they have a 2020 4th round pick still to go. which you know they're going to trade.
Up
that's
or down
going to be the Randy
again
Moss trade, right? That's what they did with Randy Moss,
Yep.
a fourth-round
Yep.
pick. So there's probably still another playing comer for Jimmy Garoppolo who might be out of San Francisco next year. Who knows? He's on a year-to-year basis now. He could be done. It's just unbelievable if you really follow these things through.
That is remarkable, and that's fun that they're able to turn Jimmy Garoppolo, a guy who wasn't going to play for him.
No,
like
never.
see, that's the brilliant part. Like this
They
guy
didn't even need him. They had no leverage. They didn't need him.
They didn't even need him. And backup quarterbacks for the Patriots, they've gone on to make money and have marginal success. Matt Castle, right, made the playoffs with the Chiefs.
Jacoby Brissett,
Still has a
Excuse me,
chance.
he made the playoffs with the Patriots. He didn't. Did he make? I don't think Castle.
No, they didn't make the playoffs that year. That's the one blip in the year. They won 11 games, didn't make the playoffs with Matt Castle at quarterback.
Yeah, plenty.
All right, the basketball team. Boston's going still has the potential to go for the slam in all the sports.
Yeah, if you don't know about this.
I mean, the Red Sox won the World Series. Patriots won the Super Bowl. The Boston Bruins just eliminated the Columbus Blue Jackets to reach the Eastern Conference Finals.
One step away here.
And the Celtics are on the Eastern semis. However, thanks to Giannis, 39 points last night.
Can you imagine?
They're down 3-1 to the Bucks.
I mean, we sit here in Buffalo where it's misery, right? Sports hell. Can you imagine one city winning all four? I can't even fathom it.
Well, first of all,
what do you do with that?
And all four teams have won over the last 10 years.
But in one year,
once, right?
In 1 year, every 2 months, there's another. Can you even imagine? I don't even know how to. That's not even palatable.
No, not in our universe here. But it says a lot to me about the passion for sports in that city that drives the teams to perform well, to hire really talented people, to do everything within their power to be successful and to win. And I think that's where the correlation between city and teams come from.
Well, hold on a second. You're saying, but that statement says other teams and owners don't want to win, don't have the drive.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think you could argue with me that Boston fans are, if not among the most passionate in the country, and I think that drives an expectation that makes an owners not just want to win, but know they have to win. And in order to do that, they have to sign the best players and hire the best managers and all of that other stuff. It's not coincidence, Kevin, that all these teams have been this successful.
Well, I don't think. Well, I'm not going to say it's not coincidence, but what I'm going to say is, so you have Boston, and it's a great sports town because their teams win. Okay, is it a better sports town than New York?
I think because there are singular teams in there's no split allegiances. That better, worse, different.
Is it a better sports town than Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think it is.
Why? Because the Pirates suck?
No, because I think there's a different fan base.
Yeah,
there's a different attitude.
Has
there.
New York or LA even come close to this? That's my point.
Well, no,
Boston's
but
not them.
But here's the point I'm going to get to. So if I'm the owner of the Bruins, and by the way, the Bruins lost for many, many years. They won, and then they just made money.
So did the Red Sox,
right? And the Red Sox were terrible for many, many years, and then all of a sudden they win, but they have all this money. They're willing to spend the money. Owners got to be willing to spend the money, and when they see the others win, yes, they want to spend it because people aren't going to buy their tickets. Well, I'm just going to be all in on the Patriots here instead of going to Bruins games.
Isn't some of this Brady? Maybe a lot of this. Isn't it Brady?
No question.
The consistency of the
sort
Patriots
of established standard.
It has It had to drive the other franchises in that city, right? But let me even go farther out, and I wish I'd done the research. Has the state of California ever even done this? With all of those teams in all of those sports. Has this ever been done?
Won a championship in the same year.
Has there been a California
has it ever been done,
slam?
period?
Well,
that's what I mean, like a state.
So you'd have to think 49ers, Giants, Dodgers,
Raiders,
Lakers,
Warriors, Clippers, Kings.
Well, Clippers, they haven't won. But the Lakers.
There's 15, 20 teams if you're talking about all four sports.
Sure.
I don't think it's ever been done. So if the fact that Boston is even could have 3 out of 4 is incredible.
Right. See the difference, Kevin. The difference, Kevin. You cited Pittsburgh, and nothing against Pittsburgh. Love Pittsburgh. Friends, great city. I don't know that the standard in Pittsburgh for ownership is the same to spend the money and be successful.
Well, not with the Pirates, no.
Well, but with any of the team, again, the Penguins have won. I just think in general there's a different feeling in the city. Maybe Brady and the Patriots have established it. There's just a different sense of what the fans demand. And let's be honest, Boston is a very wealthy, large city, much larger, probably double the size of Pittsburgh, which means double the resources. Boston's a very unique city, and you've got incredible blue collar, but you've got incredible higher education in all the colleges that are there, and the computer technology and the health sciences. It's a really unique city in my experience in a lot of different ways, and I think all that adds together, even though the professor from Harvard and the guy who's running the T have that same level of passion for the Red Sox in particular, but the sports as a whole, and I think that just elevates the demand level there.
Does winning equal passion for a sports team? No, I'm serious.
It
because
equals interest, right?
Okay, but it doesn't equal passion
interest.
because I'll use the New Jersey Devils as an example.
I think passion pushes winning more.
It equals money. It equals money in, right? It brings money in, which then allows you to spend more. Does that help?
Sure.
Are fans in Boston any less passionate about the Red Sox when they're struggling? Sometimes even more so.
No. That's my point.
Yeah, that is interesting.
No, that's my point because Cubs fans, like all those years of losing, passionate Cubs fans,
Knicks,
right?
Where are the Knicks right now in all this, right?
The Knicks are terrible. Yes.
I think we're struggling to define what passion means sometimes.
I'm not. Passion means you love sports and you love watching your team. You're going to go to games.
There's always been the argument about the Cubs that people go to Cubs games because it's a cool place to go and hang out and have an old style in the bleachers. Is that different than passion for demanding winning?
Wow. I want to know who else could do this. Who else can do this? Can Dallas? Los Angeles definitely can, right? The Dodgers.
But how do you determine who can or can't do it?
How about Houston?
Well, Houston, Dallas combined.
Well, because you got the hockey team.
You got Texas Rangers. You got the Houston Astros.
Dallas Stars.
Yeah, they can do this. I think it's a very rare. I think it's rarer than we give it credit to.
Well, to have it all going
Detroit's never doing this, right?
Not with the Lions, no. To have it all going at the same time, yeah. But because you look at Detroit, let's take Detroit for example.
Right,
they've had 3 of their franchises win championships, right, and have little mini runs. The Red Wings were a dynasty in hockey. The Pistons, the bad boys, right? But they didn't happen at the same time. And then you had the Detroit Tigers. Tigers may have been, and actually the original Tigers, right? 82.
Let me ask you this,
right? When they won,
Gibson Tigers?
Kirk Gibson Tigers. They were before the Red Wings came onto their
before
scene.
the Bad Boys,
and before the Bad Boys. Although the Bad Boys,
that was late 80s, early 90s.
It might have been the
it?
Tigers, then the Bad Boys, then the Red Wings, and then the Tigers again.
I just think it's fluke.
Yes, I agree. For them to have it all at the same time, it is fluke.
We spend so much time with team building and understanding that some years it's just not going to be your years. You've got to flip it over, like the Lakers right now, right? It's just fluky, right? I mean, the Celtics had all of these things go right? They drafted the right players. They acquired all these high draft picks through trades.
It's not their year, by the way.
Yeah, but they might rip it all down and trade for Anthony Davis and be a monster next year.
Right.
So, and then obviously the Red Sox
doesn't appear that Kyrie Irving's going to stay with the Celtics. Doesn't appear that way.
I don't know.
Well, if Adam Sandler has his way, he'll go to the Knicks along with Kevin Durant.
What if it's Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis?
That'd be fine.
Yeah,
Kyrie Irving with any of those guys would be fine. Yes,
like wouldn't you trade other pieces at this point and try to re-sign Kyrie Irving? I think I would.
I would absolutely.
Right?
I'll leave you with this: does the passion and the standards set by the city of Boston attract the highest level of people, general managers, people that make the ultimate decisions that lead to successful teams? Is that where a really good general manager in any sport says, I want to go to Boston. I want to go there. Maybe that would be the correlation amongst the four teams is that there's that people want to be there. The highest level, highest achievers, the Theo Epsteins at the time of the world wanted to be in Boston, probably had their choice of going other places. Is that any, as we're looking for ways to link all these four together, is that part of it?
It's for sure.
And
part
then
of
that
it.
leads to players likely who see the same thing.
It's an interest because of the winning. It's money, right? I mean,
Sure,
obviously
of
the
course.
price tags are going to be better.
Yeah, and again, that's why I brought it up. Boston's an incredibly wealthy city. That has a lot to do with it.
But I just think Belichick and Brady owe most of this.
Correct.
Yeah,
they deserve most of the credit
they've
for
set
this.
the standard, no
they
question.
Have built the totem pole, and everybody else is trying to jump on, right? I mean, that's just what it is. And if you have that, what other city can claim that stake right now?
This sounds like a great future Spot Track podcast with someone from the city of Boston, who has covered these sports for a number of years. I'd love to.
How did we get to here?
We're just guessing at it based on our trips there. I would love to hear what someone who has lived and been in the middle of all this. You know, a Bob Ryan or a Dan Shaughnessy, those are big names in Boston. What they think about this?
Let me say this about Boston. If you grow up in New England, you're a Red Sox fan, right? I mean, you're born out of the womb. You got a B on the cap, right?
Sure.
The Patriots stunk for years.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Brady put that on the map, right? When it came to Celtics.
Belichick,
But when it came to Celtics, if you're also like that B flipped around backwards, it was the Shamrock, right, from the Celtics. They were, I mean, great with, Kuzi and Havlicek, right, and then the Bird. And so they had been great for many, many years. And then they won with Pierce and Garnett. But, it's just a little, a hit. It was like dropped out of nowhere, right, for that with the Celtics. When you look at the Bruins, yeah, they won way back in the day, and then they won the Stanley Cup. I think the hardest thing to win in sports, by the way, with that. And then the Red Sox finally came through after all the tradition, all those years,
and now they can't stop winning.
Now they can't stop winning.
They've won
Correct.
4 in the last 15 years.
And part of it is, I think players look at it and say, man, Fenway Park, it's unique. It's a special place. I'd love to go play there. They're going to pay me to go play in Boston, and it's a great city. It's it is a great city. As much as it pains me to say it.
I think the first point that you made is big for me. It's not just the city of Boston. It's Maine, it's Vermont, it's New Hampshire, it's Connecticut.
It's a big area.
It's a big area.
And they're
where
close together.
Everybody is locked in on one city and one team. You don't get that in New York. You don't get that in California.
No, or Chicago.
You don't
Much
get that in
competition.
Chicago. You don't get that in Texas. It's very unique. And again, how much that drives the finances and the passion and the interest. It's everybody in a 7-state area. When the minute you're born and you decide you're going to follow sports, you're rooting for one of the Boston teams.
And here's the other thing. It was established by 2 generations ago when you could not watch every game on television of any team.
Yes.
Where all you saw were Patriots games and maybe the Monday Night Football game, or all you got were Red Sox games.
On TV 38.
Right. On a Saturday, that's all you got, right? I mean, now you think about the generation of kids now, and I'll look at my kids. I can't believe I'm going to say it. My youngest likes the Patriots. And everybody's like, why? I said, because he only watches a few games a year. He'll watch the Monday night game, and he watches his playoff games, right?
You don't have
and
to
who's
be,
in them? The
you
Patriots.
You don't have to be the fan of your dad's team anymore.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
But
so
let's keep our eye on the prize here. It is the general managers.
I think
it is.
so.
I mean,
I
it is.
think so.
Well, you can hire
it's because of money. It's because of all the proximity, the geography we're talking
Because there's
about.
plenty of bad money that's
But the
been
guys
spent
that are
clearly.
there, yes, the guys that are there are just the smartest in the world right now. They are. I mean, it's not a fluke that Daryl Morey and his Houston Rockets are where they are. He established this analytical system, and it is working, and it's definitely working. It's definitely working. So there's a whole aspect of this that is just nerdy GM success.
Well, but there are plenty of owners who are willing to pay for top talent.
Yeah, but you got to buy in. You got to buy in. You got to let him. I mean, you're starting to hear stories now about how GMs are not just pencil writer, paper guys. They're in the dugouts now. They are making roster moves. It's Moneyball in reality here. It's really happening. That the guys from the Mets, the guys from the Dodgers, the front office is in these coaches' ears to the point of where the coaches are sort of just proxies, right?
Yeah.
They're just sort of, I'm here to sort of manage the day-to-day operations, but and I get a word of the 3 guys I should start in the outfield tomorrow, based on the numbers and based on the weather and based on blah blah, certain heartbeat rates, because all these guys are hooked up. This stuff all exists and it's working. And if owners aren't willing to buy in financially and mentally to this whole system, they're going to be behind, because those teams are winning. They're winning. Tampa Bay is one of them, by the way.
Right. All right. Great stuff here. As always, check out all contract information, SpotTrack.com. Make sure you check out the premium section, become a premium or ad-free experience, some other goodies, too, coming your way. And we'll continue to talk about this. We're never short on things to talk about in the sports world and the money of sports and how teams were built. For Paul Peck and Mike Giannetti, I'm Kevin Sylvester. Thanks for listening to the SpotTrack.com podcast, which, of course, is brought to you by Morgan Stanley Global Sports and Entertainment. Learn more on how to preserve wealth for professional athletes and entertainers at morganstanley.com/GSE. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, LLC, member SIPC.